My name is Sophia Mitchell. I am 35 years old, and for most of my adult life, I have been the reliable one in my family, the one people called when they were in trouble, the one who bailed others out, the one who quietly put her own needs aside so everyone else could feel safe. For years, I told myself that being dependable was a strength, that it made me important, that it meant I was loved. But when my brother tried to drag me into the ugliest chapter of his life, demanding that I cover his divorce settlement of $100,000, I realized being the reliable one was slowly destroying me. My brother's name is Marcus, and we were never particularly close growing up. He was 2 years younger, spoiled by our parents, and always had a knack for getting himself into situations that required someone else to rescue him. In high school, when he crashed our father's car, I was the one who sold half my belongings to help pay the repair bill. In college, when he maxed out his credit cards, I lent him money I had saved from waitressing jobs. When he went through his first messy breakup, I was the one who stayed up nights listening to him cry, even when I had exams the next day. Each time, he promised to change. Each time, he didn't. Now, at 33, Marcus had married and divorced within 3 years. His marriage to a woman named Natalie was doomed from the start. They fought constantly over money, over her career, over his late nights out with friends. I tried to stay out of it, but he often called me, ranting about how misunderstood he was. When the divorce papers finally came, I thought he'd accept the consequences. But instead, he called me one evening, his voice frantic. "Sophia, I need your help. The settlement is $100,000. If I don't pay, they'll garnish my wages, and I'll lose everything." I remember gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. "Marcus, that's not my problem. That's between you and Natalie." He groaned, his voice rising. "Come on, you've always been there for me. You have savings, you have a steady job, you can afford it. You're my sister. You're supposed to help me." His words cut me in a way I hadn't expected. Supposed to help. As if my existence was nothing more than a safety net for his mistakes. My chest burned with anger. "Marcus, I am not your personal bank. I worked for years to build what I have. I am not paying for your bad decisions." But Marcus was relentless. Over the following weeks, he called almost daily. Sometimes he begged, sometimes he guilt-tripped, sometimes he lashed out, accusing me of abandoning him. Our parents joined in too, subtly pressuring me to just help him out this once. My mother would say, "Sophia, he's your brother. He's struggling. Family is family." My father sighed heavily on the phone, reminding me of all the times Marcus had been the weaker one, and how it was my role to support him. One Sunday afternoon, Marcus showed up at my door unannounced. He looked disheveled, dark circles under his eyes, clutching a stack of papers. "Please, Sophia," he said, his voice breaking. "They're going to take everything from me. I'll pay you back, I promise." I let him in, my heart aching despite my anger. He spread the papers across my kitchen table, legal documents, bank statements, letters from his lawyer. The number glared up at me, $100,000. I felt like the walls were closing in. "Marcus," I whispered, tears stinging my eyes, "do you realize what you're asking? That's my entire safety net. That's years of hard work. That's my future." He leaned forward desperately. "And what about my future? If you don't help me, I'll lose everything. I'm your brother, Sophia. Don't you care?" The guilt was suffocating. I looked at him, the same boy I had once protected from bullies, the same man who had never learned to stand on his own. My heart ached for him, but I also felt something else, a deep, simmering anger at myself. Because I knew if I gave in now, he would never stop. This cycle would go on forever, and I would always be the one bleeding so he could feel whole. That I stood up slowly, my voice trembling but firm. "Marcus, I do care. But caring doesn't mean I destroy myself for you. You need to take responsibility. I am done being used." His face hardened, the desperation in his eyes twisting into rage. "You're heartless," he spat. "You'd let your own brother drown while you sit on your pile of money. You'll regret this, Sophia. You'll regret it." He stormed out, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. I sank into a chair, my whole body shaking. For the first time in my life, I had told him no. For the first time, I had drawn a line. And though it felt terrifying, it also felt like the first breath of freedom, but deep down I knew this was only the beginning. Marcus wasn't going to let it go. My parents weren't going to let it go. And I was about to discover just how much pressure a family can put on you when you finally decide to stop being their savior. After Marcus stormed out of my house that Sunday afternoon, I thought maybe, just maybe, he would realize the gravity of what he was asking. I thought the silence that followed would mean he had finally accepted that I wasn't going to be his savior anymore. But silence doesn't last long in my family. Within 2 days, my phone began ringing again, this time not from Marcus, but from my parents. The first call came from my mother. Her voice was heavy, with that soft, guilt-tripping tone I had known since childhood. "Sophia, sweetheart, Marcus told us what happened. You turned him away. How could you? He's your brother. He's drowning, and all he needs is a little help." "A little help?" I repeated, my voice rising despite my best efforts to stay calm. "He's asking me for $100,000, Mom. That's not a little help. That's my entire future." She sighed deeply, the kind of sigh that makes you feel like you've already failed before the conversation has even started. "You've always been the strong one, Sophia. You've always had your life together. Marcus, he's different. He's never had your discipline, your drive. He's made mistakes, yes, but he's family. And family means we carry each other when times are hard." I clenched the phone tighter, my jaw aching. "And when have they carried me, Mom? When have I ever asked for anything? I've always been the one fixing, the one bailing out, the one patching holes Marcus drilled into his own boat. When does it end?" She went quiet, then whispered, "Sophia, you'll regret it if something happens to him." Those words haunted me long after we hung up. That was how my mother worked, planting seeds of fear, of guilt, of responsibility that didn't belong to me, but somehow always grew inside me like weeds. The next evening, my father called. His approach was less emotional, but just as manipulative. "Sophia, I understand your frustration," he said in that calm, steady voice that once made me believe every word he spoke was truth. "But Marcus is your brother. $100,000 is a lot. Yes, but you'll recover. You have a good job, you save, you'll build it back. He doesn't have what you have. If you don't help him, I'm afraid this divorce will ruin him." I closed my eyes, exhaustion washing over me. Dad, he ruined himself. He cheated, he overspent, he ignored every warning sign. Why is it my job to clean it up? There was a long pause before he answered. "Because you can." That night, I cried until my chest hurt. Not because I was considering giving Marcus the money, but because I realized just how deep the pattern went. My family didn't see me as Sophia, a woman with dreams and a future. They saw me as a resource, a lifeline to be pulled on whenever Marcus sank. My love had become a leash around my neck. By the end of the week, Marcus himself came back, this time calmer, more strategic. He invited me out for coffee, and against my better judgment, I went. He looked tired, his shirt wrinkled, his hands fidgeting with his cup. "Sophia," he said softly, "I know I came on too strong. I was desperate. But I'm your brother. We've been through so much together. Please, I need you. Natalie's lawyer is tearing me apart. If I can't pay the settlement, I'll lose everything. My apartment, my car, maybe even my job. You wouldn't let me end up on the streets, would you?" I stared at him, torn between anger and pity. "Marcus, I've already given you so much over the years. Do you even remember all the times I helped you? The car repairs, the credit card bills, the rent when you were short? Do you ever think about how much I sacrificed?" He winced, but then leaned forward, his eyes glistening. "And I'm grateful? I am. But this is different. This is life or death for me. Please, Sophia. I'll pay you back. I swear, on everything I have left." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe my brother could finally take responsibility, but deep down I knew the truth. Marcus had never paid me back for anything. Promises from him were like smoke. They filled the room for a moment and disappeared just as quickly. "I can't," I whispered, my throat tight. His expression darkened instantly. The pleading tone evaporated, replaced by bitterness.
Fine.
I should have known. You've always thought you were better than me. Miss Perfect Sophia. Too good to help her own brother. You'll regret this when I'm gone. He stormed out of the cafe, leaving me sitting there with tears stinging my eyes. The barista gave me a sympathetic look, but I couldn't even muster a smile. That night, my phone buzzed with messages from relatives, an aunt, a cousin, all parroting the same lines. He's your brother, he needs you. Family sticks together. You're lucky to be in a position to help. It was clear Marcus had spread the story, painting me as cold, selfish, heartless. He had always been good at playing the victim, and once again, I was the villain in everyone else's eyes. But as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Noah's words from our earlier fight replaying in my head, I realized something important. This wasn't just about $100,000. This was about a lifetime of being used. And for the first time, I felt a strange sense of strength building inside me. Maybe I couldn't change how my family saw me, but I could change how I allowed them to treat me. I wiped my tears and whispered into the darkness, I'm done being the safety net. And I meant it. After that week of endless phone calls and whispered accusations from relatives, I realized that the fight I was in wasn't just against Marcus. It was against an entire family system that had been built around protecting him, excusing him, and sacrificing me in the process. I had always been the strong one, the reliable one, the sister who would fix things when Marcus broke them. And now that I had finally said no, they didn't know what to do with me. Instead of respecting my boundaries, they treated me like a traitor. The following Saturday, my parents invited me over for dinner. I almost didn't go, but part of me wanted to face them. I was tired of feeling like the villain in a story that wasn't mine. When I walked into their house, the tension was already thick in the air. My mother greeted me with a forced smile, my father nodded stiffly, and Marcus was sitting at the table, arms crossed, a bitter expression carved into his face. We ate in silence for a few minutes before my mother finally spoke. Sophia, we just want to talk. This family has always been about supporting each other. And right now, Marcus needs us more than ever. I set my fork down and looked directly at Marcus.
No.
What Marcus needs is to finally take responsibility for his own life. He's in this mess because of his choices, not because of me. I didn't marry Natalie. I didn't break the vows. I didn't ignore the bills. Why should I pay for his mistakes? Marcus leaned forward, his voice sharp. Because you can. You make more money than I do. You've always had everything together. You wouldn't even miss it. But me? This will ruin me. I felt anger, rising like a wave. I would miss it, Marcus. That money is for my future, for my home, for the life I've worked hard to build. You act like I just stumbled into stability, but I bled for every dollar I saved. And you think you're entitled to it just because we share blood? That's not family. That's exploitation. My father's voice cut through, calm but stern. Sophia, lower your voice. We're just trying to have a civilized discussion. You're making it sound harsher than it needs to be. I turned to him, my heart pounding. Harsh? Do you know what's harsh? Spending my entire life cleaning up Marcus's disasters while nobody ever asks me if I'm okay. Harsh is being told that because I can, I must. Harsh is realizing that my own family only sees me as a resource to drain. The room went quiet. Marcus's face turned red, his hands clenching into fists.
So that's it?
You're cutting me off? You're done being my sister? I swallowed hard. I will always be your sister, Marcus. But I am not your savior. And if you can't see the difference, then maybe you've never valued me as family at all. My mother began to cry quietly, muttering about how I was tearing the family apart. My father shook his head in disappointment, and Marcus stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. You're selfish, Sophia. You'll regret this when I lose everything. He stormed out, slamming the door, leaving the three of us in silence. My parents looked at me like I had committed some unforgivable crime. I stood, my hands trembling, but my voice steady. I won't apologize for finally protecting myself. If that makes me the bad guy in your eyes, then so be it. I drove home that night with tears streaming down my face, But beneath the sorrow was something stronger: resolve. I had said the words out loud. I had drawn the line not just with Marcus, but with my parents too. And though it hurt to feel like the outcast in my own family, it also felt like freedom. Over the next few weeks, the fallout grew. Relatives started calling me less, and when they did, their voices carried that same tone of quiet judgment. Marcus sent me a few texts, some begging, some filled with anger, before finally going silent. It stung, but I also felt lighter without the constant weight of his demands pressing on me. One evening, as I sat on my porch with a cup of tea, my neighbor Jonathan, an old friend from high school, stopped by. We hadn't spoken much in years, but he had seen Marcus storming out of my house a few times. "You okay?" he asked gently. I sighed. "Family drama. My brother wants me to pay for his divorce settlement. $100,000. Jonathan let out a low whistle. "That's insane. Don't you dare do it." I smiled weakly. "I won't. Not this time. I've spent my whole life bailing him out. I'm done." He nodded approvingly.
Good.
Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop letting people use you. Blood doesn't give anyone the right to bleed you dry. His words stuck with me. That night, I wrote them in my journal. Blood doesn't give anyone the right to bleed you dry. It became my mantra in the days that followed, a reminder that setting boundaries didn't make me cruel. It made me human. And slowly, I began to feel the weight lift from my shoulders, but I also knew Marcus wasn't finished with me. People like him never let go easily. And deep down, I braced myself for the moment he would come back, angrier, more desperate, and more determined to pull me down with him. I thought after that explosive dinner at my parents' house, Marcus would finally back off. I had been clear, I had stood firm, and I had told him I was done. But the thing about people who are used to taking is that they don't stop just because you finally say no. If anything, they find new ways to push, to manipulate, to take what isn't theirs. And Marcus was no different. It started subtly. One morning I opened my email at work and saw a strange notification from my bank. Someone had attempted to apply for a personal loan in my name. My stomach dropped. I hadn't applied for anything. I immediately called the bank, and after a long, stressful conversation with the fraud department, they confirmed what I already suspected. Someone had used my information to try and secure a large loan. The amount? $100,000. My hands trembled as I hung up the phone. There was only one person desperate enough, reckless enough, and entitled enough to do it. Marcus. I drove straight to my parents' house that evening, the papers from the bank clutched in my hand. Marcus was there, lounging on the couch like he owned the place. The sight of him made my blood boil. "How dare you?" I shouted the second I stepped inside. He sat up, feigning innocence. "What are you talking about?" I threw the papers at him, the bank's rejection letter landing in his lap. "You tried to take out a loan in my name. $100,000. Do you think I'm stupid?" His face went red, then pale, then hardened with defiance. "I was going to pay it back. I just needed help getting it approved. You have good credit, I don't. It would have worked if you weren't so selfish." I felt the air leave my lungs. "Selfish? You stole my information, Marcus. Do you understand how serious this is? That's fraud. That's a crime. You could ruin my life, my career, everything I've built." My parents rushed in at the shouting, their faces panicked. "What's going on?" my mother cried. I turned to them, my voice shaking with fury. "Your son just tried to steal a loan in my name. He's willing to drag me down with him because he can't take responsibility for his own mess." My father looked horrified, but my mother immediately went into defense mode. "Marcus, tell me you didn't," she whispered. He threw his hands up. "What choice did I have? No one is helping me. She has everything, and I have nothing." I thought she would understand. I laughed bitterly, tears streaming down my face. "Understand? The only thing I understand is that you've been using me my entire life. And now you're willing to commit fraud just to keep bleeding me dry." My father rubbed his face, clearly shaken, but my mother turned her anger toward me instead of Marcus. "Sophia, he's desperate. You've left him no choice. If you had just helped him, he wouldn't have had to go this far." Those words hit me harder than Marcus's betrayal. My own mother was justifying a crime, excusing the inexcusable because it was easier than admitting her son was broken. I stood there, stunned, realizing I couldn't win. No matter what Marcus did, my parents would always twist it into my fault. "I'm done," I whispered, my voice hoarse. "I am done with all of you." Marcus sneered. "Go ahead, walk away. But when I lose everything, it'll be on your conscience." I turned to my parents one last time, my heart breaking. "If you want to enable him until the day he drags you all down with him, that's your choice. But I'm finished. I won't let him ruin me." I walked out of that house and didn't look back. My hands shook on the steering wheel the entire drive home, but my resolve was stronger than ever. I called the bank first thing the next morning to put extra protections on my accounts. I contacted an attorney about identity theft, just in case. And then I blocked Marcus's number. The silence that followed was deafening. My phone no longer buzzed with his desperate pleas, but it also stopped buzzing with my parents' calls. Word spread quickly through the family, and soon enough I was painted as the cold-hearted sister who abandoned her brother when he needed her most. Relatives sent me passive-aggressive messages about how money isn't everything and family should come first. I deleted every single one, but at night, when the house was quiet, the guilt gnawed at me. The voice of my mother echoed in my head. "If you had just helped him, he wouldn't have had to go this far." I hated that it lingered, hated that it made me question myself even when I knew I was right. One evening, my neighbor Jonathan stopped by again. He saw the exhaustion on my face and asked what was wrong. When I told him about the loan, he shook his head in disbelief. "Sophia, that's not just family drama anymore. That's criminal. You can't let him pull you under. You're stronger than this. Don't let their guilt eat you alive." His words gave me strength. For the first time in my life, I began to see clearly. My brother wasn't my responsibility. My parents' denial wasn't my burden. Their disappointment wasn't my failure. I had been carrying a weight that was never mine to bear. Marcus had crossed the line, and I was finally ready to stop letting him cross me. For a while, the silence after Marcus's attempted fraud gave me hope. I thought maybe he'd realized how far he'd gone, that he'd retreat and lick his wounds, maybe even take responsibility for once in his life. But Marcus wasn't built that way. He was like a drowning man, pulling down anyone who got close enough to try and keep him afloat. And since I was the only one who ever really resisted, I became his target. It started small, with whispers I heard through mutual acquaintances. At a family friend's barbecue, someone pulled me aside and asked, "Sophia, is it true you cut Marcus off completely? That you left him with nothing?" I stared at them, stunned. Marcus had already spun a new story, painting me not just as cold, but cruel. The sister with plenty who turned her back while her brother lost everything. Soon, the story grew louder. My aunt called one evening, her tone laced with judgment. "Sophia, I don't understand how you can sleep at night knowing your brother is suffering. Everyone is talking about it. They say you've become hard, that money has made you selfish." I hung up the phone shaking, not with guilt but with rage. I wanted to scream that Marcus had tried to steal from me, that he was drowning because of his own actions. But I also realized none of them wanted the truth. They wanted a scapegoat. And I was the easy one because I had finally broken the cycle. The final blow came 2 weeks later when my parents invited me over again. I debated whether to go, but a part of me still hoped they might finally see my side. When I arrived, I noticed immediately that the living room was fuller than usual. Not just my parents, my aunt, my uncle, even a cousin or two. And sitting at the center of it all, looking pitiful and broken, was Marcus. My stomach sank. It wasn't dinner. It was an intervention. "Sit down, Sophia," my father said, gesturing to the chair across from Marcus. I crossed my arms. "What is this?" My mother's eyes filled with tears. "Sweetheart, we're worried about the family. Marcus is struggling. He needs help, and you're the only one who can truly save him." I looked around at their expectant faces, at Marcus sitting there with his head bowed, pretending to be the victim. It was all I could do not to laugh at the absurdity. Save him? Or enable him? "Don't be cruel," my aunt cut in. He's your brother. Blood is blood. $100,000 is nothing compared to family. I snapped, my voice rising. $100,000 is everything I've worked for. It's my savings, my safety net, my future. And it's not my debt to pay. Marcus made his choices. He married Natalie. He ignored their problems. He let it spiral. Why is everyone looking at me to fix it? Marcus finally looked up, his eyes red, his voice trembling with practiced fragility. Because you're the only one who can, Sophia. Please. I'll lose everything. I'll be homeless. Is that what you want for me? My chest tightened, but I forced myself to stay firm. What I want is for you to finally grow up and face the consequences of your own actions. You've been using me as a crutch your entire life, Marcus. Not anymore. The room erupted. My mother sobbed. My aunt shook her head in disgust. My uncle muttered something about me being heartless. The weight of their judgment pressed down on me, but beneath it all, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Strengthened I stood, my voice steady even though my hands trembled. If all of you want to keep enabling him, go ahead. Give him your money. Bail him out. But stop looking at me as if it's my job to ruin myself for him. I am done. Marcus's mask of sorrow cracked then, his eyes blazing with anger. You'll regret this, Sophia. When I'm out on the street, when I've lost everything, you'll know it's because of you. I met his gaze coldly.
No, Marcus.
It will be because of you. I walked out of that room to the sound of my mother's sobs and my relatives' murmurs of disapproval. It hurt more than I could ever put into words, but as I stepped outside and felt the cool night air on my face, I also felt free. For the first time, I wasn't carrying Marcus's burdens. I was carrying my own life, my own choices, my own future. That night, sitting on my porch with Jonathan checking in on me again, I admitted through tears, it feels like I lost my family. He looked at me with quiet wisdom. You didn't lose them, Sophia. You just stopped letting them lose you. There's a difference. His words sank deep, and as painful as it was, I knew he was right. Marcus and my parents could spin their stories however they wanted, but I wasn't going back. I had drawn the line, and for once, I was determined to keep it. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that Marcus wasn't finished. He was too desperate, too entitled, too consumed by his own mess to stop here. And deep down, I braced myself because I knew the worst storm was still coming. I thought the intervention had been the peak of Marcus's desperation, but I underestimated just how far he would go once he realized guilt and family pressure weren't enough to break me. The truth was, Marcus didn't want to take responsibility. He wanted to drag me into the pit with him, and when manipulation failed, he turned to destruction. The storm hit one Monday morning at work. I walked into the office, coffee in hand, ready to start the day when my boss, Mr. Andrews, asked me to step into his office. His tone was polite but strained. My stomach dropped. Inside, he handed me a printout of an email. I received this over the weekend, he said as I scanned the page, my heart pounding. It was a long, rambling message full of accusations. The sender? An anonymous address, but I knew immediately whose fingerprints were all over it. The email claimed that I had been stealing money from the company, that I had a secret gambling problem, that I was hiding assets to cover up a family scandal. None of it was true, but the words were venomous, carefully crafted to sound believable. This doesn't sound like you, Mr. Andrews said gently. But I need to ask, do you know anything about this? My throat tightened.
No.
Absolutely not. This is a lie. I can guess who wrote it, but I'll spare you the details. It's family drama. My brother is trying to ruin me because I refuse to give him money. My boss studied me for a moment before nodding. I believe you, Sophia. You've been one of the most reliable employees we've ever had. But you should know things like this can spread. Be careful. I walked out of his office shaking, both with relief that he believed me and with fury that Marcus had stooped so low. He hadn't just tried to steal from me financially. Now he was trying to sabotage my career, the very foundation I had worked my entire adult life to build. That evening, I called him. When he picked up, his tone was cold. What do you want? My voice shook with rage. You think I don't know it was you? You tried to destroy my reputation at work. Do you have any idea what that could have cost me? He laughed bitterly. Maybe now you know what it feels like to lose everything. Maybe now you'll understand why I needed your help. I could barely breathe. Marcus, you've crossed every line there is. This isn't just selfish anymore, it's cruel. You want to burn my life down because I won't hand you $100,000? That's not family. That's not even human. His voice rose. Family means sacrifice. But you're too cold to see it. You'd rather watch me drown than help me out of the water. Don't act like you're innocent. You've always had more than me, and you hoard it like a dragon. Well, maybe you deserve to lose some of it. I hung up before my rage consumed me. For hours, I sat in silence, Noah's words echoing in my head. Blood doesn't give anyone the right to bleed you dry. Jonathan had been right. This wasn't family. This was parasitism. The next blow came days later, when I arrived at my parents' house for what I thought would be a civil conversation. Instead, I found Marcus already there, red-faced and shouting, waving around his phone. She's lying about me to everyone, he screamed the moment I walked in. She's poisoning people against me. She's making me look like a monster. I stared at him, stunned. Marcus, you don't need my help to look like a monster. You've done that all on your own. My mother jumped in, sobbing. Stop it, both of you. We're a family. We should be united. I turned to her, tears burning in my eyes. United doesn't mean destroying one person to save another. You want me to give up everything so Marcus can avoid consequences. That's not unity, that's abuse. Marcus slammed his fist on the table. If you cared about this family, you'd pay. If you cared about me, you'd pay. You're the reason this family is falling apart. The words stung, but they also clarified something in me. For years, I had carried the guilt of being the strong one. For years, I believed it was my duty to hold everyone together. But in that moment, watching my brother scream like a child and my parents wring their hands in denial, I realized the truth. The family had been falling apart long before I said no. I had just been the glue, and now that I'd stopped holding everything together, the cracks were finally showing. I stood tall, my voice steady despite the chaos. You want to blame me? Fine. But I won't let you destroy me just because you've destroyed yourself. This is your mess, Marcus. Clean it up. I walked out to the sound of my mother's cries and Marcus's curses, but this time I didn't cry. This time, I felt stronger than ever. As I drove home, I thought about everything Marcus had done. The fraud attempt, the smear campaign, the public shaming. I realized that I couldn't just defend myself anymore. I needed to take action. Because if I didn't, he would keep coming, keep pulling, until there was nothing left of me. The storm wasn't over, but for the first time, I was ready to fight back. Not as the reliable sister, not as the scapegoat, but as someone who finally valued her own worth. The morning I decided to take real action was one of those quiet, gray mornings where the world feels heavy. I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee growing cold, staring at the pile of documents spread out in front of me. The fraudulent loan attempt, the anonymous email that Marcus had sent to my boss, the notes I had kept from every encounter, every manipulation, every threat. My hands trembled as I organized them into a folder. For years, I had been the sister who covered for him, who carried his weight. But this time, I was building a case, not to protect him, but to protect myself. I called a lawyer, the same one who had helped me sort out the loan fraud weeks earlier. Her name was Amanda Lewis, a sharp woman in her 40s who didn't waste words. I laid everything out on her desk, my voice shaking as I explained. She flipped through the documents carefully, nodding as her eyes scanned each page. Finally, she looked up at me and said, "Sophia, you have more than enough here to press charges if you want to. At the very least, you can get a restraining order." He's crossed the line from family drama into harassment and fraud. The word charges made my stomach twist. He was still my brother. Part of me recoiled at the thought of taking him to court. But then I thought about what he had already tried to take from me. My savings, my reputation, my peace of mind. And I thought about what he would keep trying to take if I let him. I don't want to destroy him, I whispered. I just want to be free. Amanda nodded. Then let's make sure he understands there are consequences. Freedom sometimes means fighting back. That weekend, my parents called, insisting I come over for dinner again. Against my better judgment, I went, folder in hand. As I walked into the familiar living room, the tension was palpable. Marcus was there, of course, arms crossed, scowling like a punished child. My mother looked at me with pleading eyes, and my father's face was hard, like stone. Before anyone could start, I placed the folder on the table and slid it toward Marcus. These are the records of everything you've done. The loan application, the email to my boss, the manipulation, the threats. If I wanted to, I could take this to the police tomorrow. Marcus's face went pale. My mother gasped, clutching her chest. Sophia, you wouldn't. I met her eyes firmly. I would. And I will if this doesn't stop. I am done being your scapegoat, Marcus. I am done being your lifeline. You've treated me like a bank account, like a shield, like a trash bin for your mistakes. But I am none of those things. I am your sister, and I deserve respect. And if you can't give me that, then you don't get me at all. The room was silent except for the sound of Marcus flipping through the pages with shaking hands. His bravado was gone. For the first time in my life, he looked scared of me, or maybe scared of the truth staring back at him in black and white. Finally, he shoved the folder away, muttering, "You'd really turn against your own brother?" I stood tall, my voice steady. "You turned against me a long time ago. I'm just finally refusing to play along." I left that night with my head held high, my parents' tears and Marcus's curses echoing behind me. And though it hurt to know my family might never see me the same way again, it also felt like the first true breath of freedom I'd taken in years. In the weeks that followed, Marcus backed off. Maybe it was fear of legal action. Maybe it was the realization that I was no longer someone he could manipulate. My parents still called occasionally, their voices softer now, tinged with disappointment, but also resignation. They knew I had drawn a line that couldn't be erased. One evening, as I sat on my porch with Jonathan, he asked me if I regretted it. Standing up, breaking the pattern, risking the bonds of family. I thought for a long time before answering. "No," I said finally. "Because sometimes the only way to save yourself is to stop letting others drown you. And if family can't understand that, then maybe they were never really holding you up in the first place." I looked up at the sky, the stars sharp and clear above me, and for the first time in years, I felt light.
Free.
Strong. And now, to you who have listened to my story until the very end, thank you. Thank you for staying with me, for walking through the chaos and the pain, and the lessons I had to learn the hard way. If there's one thing I want you to take from this, it's this. Boundaries are not cruelty. Saying no does not make you heartless. Protecting your future, your peace, and your dignity is not selfish. It's necessary. If this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. Your support means more than you know, and it allows me to keep sharing stories that matter. Until next time, take care of yourselves, stand firm in your worth, and never forget, you don't owe your life to anyone else's mistakes.